Welcome, everyone, to our company's first posting on our work completed page. Now, in subsequent postings, you'll see all kinds of cool insight into how companies like Pipe Services keep your city sewers flowing and working properly. However, being this is our first posting, I thought it fitting that we should start from the beginning. We're going to take a look at how Pipe Services does business and why they do business that way. Now, here's the heart of the matter. For far too long, modern business practices have systematically removed our faith from our professional lives. At this point, in many industries within America, speaking about God can hurt your career, attract a negative attention from your boss, or even get you fired. Now, to be sure, you must be good at what you do. Every day, you must bring value to those around you with some technical skill. However, that necessity should not mean that we can't bring God with us to our company each day when we go to work. And now, with those ideas in mind, I'd like to take you all the way back to the 1930s to a place called Oxford, England. Now, in the 1930s, there were several authors that met in a local pub and they called themselves the Inklings. It's from these authors that we got the idea of high fantasy, a pretty common theme in movies and books today, but back then it had not yet been invented. Now, the general theme amongst these authors seems to have been this: if there are no books that we should like our children to read, then we shall have to write them. Now, by no means am I comparing anyone at Pipe Services to C.S. Lewis or J.R. Tolkien. However, we've come up with our own idea within that same vein, and it's this: if there is not a company that you want to be a part of, then you shall have to create it. To be sure, first and foremost, we must be good at what we do. And make no mistake about it, that's exactly what our employees do. Every day, they show up to work and try to get a little bit better and focus on mastering their trade. In the final analysis, we must consider how we want to be remembered by those whom we worked with, by those whom we befriended, by those whom we loved, and by those whom we led, and even those strangers whom we only met in passing during our daily business. And that's exactly what Pipe Services is. We're a group of people that place Christ at our center and each day try to help one another become the best version of ourselves. Now, it just so happens that our medium for doing this is inspecting and cleaning pipes. Now, to be sure, at times it is a shitty business, all pun intended. But be that as it may, it is an honorable business and it is a great way to bring value back to American society. Now, will we be perfect at this? Surely not, but each day we'll try. There's a document associated with this video that outlines this way of doing business. It can be found in the YouTube channel notes, or it can be found linked to this video on our website. This document outlines the origin of the three frameworks that animate all of our activities at Pipe Services. Let's take a minute to look at this document. In searching for a positive way to direct our efforts in the face of the constant battle that is American business, we settled on two concise frameworks. One framework is derived from the warning set forth by Pope Leo XIII as he considered how to face the great uncertainty of the Industrial Revolution. The other framework is found in St. John Paul II's broader teaching, but is stated laconically in his apostolic exhortation titled Familiaris Consortio, when he says, "Become what you are." In the former instance, in the face of America's business's tendency to forget her most primordial responsibility of serving her customers and employees, we chose to remember this truth: companies exist to serve people, not the other way around. It's a phrase we extracted from the book titled The Pope and the CEO. In the latter case of become who you are, which is to say, we must recognize that the greatest responsibility for improvement lies within each of us who are indeed masters of our own soul, we chose to remember that we are called always to one of two extremes: to pursue what is lacking and to rest in what is good. It is the combination of these two frameworks that we hold up as a guiding map for our company's short-term and long-term decisions. In short, this is the positive framework that we orient ourselves on. This is the shining light on the hill, the lighthouse in the dark, by which we hope to live out each day. Next, let us turn to our left and right limits framework. At Pipe Services, we know that the path to the greatest version of ourselves often starts with the simplest, yet often hardest, first step of deciding what not to do or what not to be. We have four short rules meant to keep the wheels on the bus. When we have those struggle days, we believe that if we at least follow these simple rules, we'll make it as a team to the next day. And with enough consistency, we know that the next day we'll be ready to live more fully the joy that comes with living out our first two positive frameworks, which we've already discussed. Companies exist to serve people and not the other way around. And finally, pursue what is lacking and rest in what is good. I would liken these four rules to an athletic coach in high school convincing his athletes that if they can just do the basic things every day, that they will get into that 90 percentile category. And once they consistently can enter that 90 percentile category, then they can focus on moving to that next level. But it's not until you can show up every day on time with the right attitude and do the basics every day correctly that you will be prepared to move to the next level. So here's our full rules. The first rule, no lazy people, physically or mentally. We never stop learning or seeking the truth. All this is meant to do is to encourage everyone to see the world as it is. When things are good, let's talk about it. When things are bad, let's talk about it. But no matter what, every single day, we want to try to get better, and we want to recognize what it takes to move to that next level. Number two, no complaining. Instead of complaining, we make it better every day. I stole this from a commander I had in the past, and that was his saying. Every day he would come in and he would say, make it better. And it's this really simple concept of that we shouldn't fret too much about where we're at, because there's not a lot we can do to control that. What we should instead fret about is what we do today and how it will make us better tomorrow. And this isn't to say that we are not willing to talk about things that are not going well. This isn't to say that we're not willing to talk about problems that exist. But it is to say that once we've identified them, we immediately start talking about how we make it better. Because if we were to continue to talk about what is wrong with the situation over and over and over, that's complaining. But once we've identified what's wrong with the situation and we start talking about how we make it better, that is no longer complaining. That's improving. Our third rule is no pricks. You can have tough love without being disrespectful. So, by no means do we not allow our managers or our peers or our subordinates to correct someone when they're wrong. We for sure do that, but we always make sure that we do it respectfully. In other words, how you say something is often just as important as what you say. And this rule is meant to recognize that truth. Fourth, but not least, no cannot people. Don't focus on what can't be done. Show me what can be done. So my kids know this idea well. For example, if I ask you to go clean your room to one of my kids, and the first thing they do is come down and show me something that they don't know where it goes, I'll immediately send them back to their room and say, go do everything you do know how to do, and then you can worry about what you don't know how to do. Because you will be very surprised at how often in life, when you start with what you do know, how often the things you don't know start to fall in place. And that's not to say that you will always be able to find the solution yourself. It is to say, however, start with what you do know. Take that first step, and you will be surprised at how often things fall into place. And it's also to say that I don't want you to wait to bring me problem sets until you have a solution for them. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be problem sets. But it is to say, focus on what you do know how to do. So perhaps you might come to your manager and say, hey, we've got problem X. I don't know for certain how to solve problem X, but here's my two ideas, idea A and idea B. That's the type of environment that we want at our work. We don't want cannot people. They're tiring, they're exhausting, and they're not any fun. We want people that focus on what they can do with the tools they do have. It doesn't mean we can't have goals to purchase new tools when we can afford them, or to onboard new equipment when we can afford it, right? But it is to recognize that we've got to get the job done with what we do have in front of us. What's the best and most efficient way to do it right now? And we will for sure work towards those larger goals. Lastly, let's take a look at our most non-negotiable framework. It's the liturgical calendar. In 2022, we chose to honor the Catholic Church's liturgical calendar according to our local diocese guidance. The commitment and its resulting practices have grown over the years, and we hope to continue its development into something even more profound. In 1891, Pope Leo XIII warned us of the great dangers that were coming with great advancements in technology. As he pondered what would become known as the Industrial Revolution, he described it as this: the vast expansion of industrial pursuits and the marvelous discoveries of science, in the changed relations between masters and workmen, in the enormous fortunes of some few individuals, in the utter poverty of the masses, in the increased self-reliance and closer mutual combination of the working classes, as also finally in the prevailing moral degeneracy. In short, the Pope recognized that great economic change stood a good chance of putting the common recognition of the dignity of the individual human soul at risk. He was not wrong. As it turns out, the rapid advancement of technology since the Pope who wrote those prophetic words perhaps makes his warning just as relevant today as it was then. In 1965, Gordon Moore hypothesized, under Moore's law, the number of microchips to a specific space would be double every 2 years. This law, proving true, has led to an almost incomprehensible modern state of technological affairs. In the same way that all the technologies of World War II were present in World War I, but general officers did not understand how to correctly apply them, perhaps leaders of our nations today lack the insight necessary on how to apply our modern economic tools as relates to the benefit of the worker. More pithily stated, perhaps today, with the advent of AI and the relentless drive towards quarterly profits, the same risk that was present in 1891 is now present in 2025. Though we are under no delusions that Pipe Services has the answer, we have found one guiding force that seems wonderfully effective in this modern and hectic, busy world of American business. In the liturgical calendar, we see a consistent and thoughtful way to place our lives on hold and remind us of our company's primary focal points. Companies exist to serve people, and we are called to pursue what is lacking in all of our life's activities, not just work. And of course, finally, we are called to rest in what is good. The liturgical calendar is a third transcendent entity that, if followed consistently, compels our company to regularly remember that for certain profits are necessary, but our company's existence ceases to matter if we do not place the dignity of the human soul at the center of our decisions. That is to say, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, from Matthew 22:9. That phrase is often taken too lightly, as if it were easy. Of course, it is of the most challenging nature because in order to follow that imperative, according to the spirit of its intent, you must first love yourself, which is no small feat in today's hyper, publicly scrutinized, and rosy filtered social media world. Nonetheless, with the right content and structure by the liturgical calendar, Pipe Services stands a good chance of offering an environment that helps to do exactly that. Place the dignity of the human soul at the center of our perceptions, our conversations, our decisions, and our conduct. So here's what we have so far for the liturgical calendar. Again, this is an effort we started in 2022. It's grown since then, and we hope to continue to enhance its frameworks as we move forward. First and foremost, personnel are given time to attend Holy Day of Obligation services. During these specific days, 2 to 3 hours are given for employees to attend services, usually during the morning hours, in some cases, for example, during Good Friday to attend an afternoon service. But generally speaking, employees get 2 to 3 hours off based upon the local church's mass times for that specific Holy Day of Obligation. This time is off, and it's a recognition that our time, even our work time, is always subservient to our Creator. Now, what our employees do that with that is up to them. Of our employees whom are Catholic, I think a large percentage of them take the time to go to Mass. those who are not Catholic. Some just spend the time at home with their families, and some attend some service of their own nature. But in any case, it's a regularly scheduled events throughout the year that are directed by our local diocese that help to remind us of the center of our day. The second component is this process of self-actualizing, right? Which is a modern philosophical term, but it's this idea of trying to become the best version of yourself. During our holy days of obligation, after the service time is given and people return to work, we're still developing what exactly we do during these days, but what we are certain of is we want to use these days to become better people. Sometimes this will mean simply having fun together, doing something enjoyable that has nothing really to do with work, just spending time together. Sometimes it will be exposure to content that can help us in our personal lives. And that's not to say that improving ourselves in our personal life does not benefit the company. For sure it does. If our employees become better people, it of course benefits our company. But it is to recognize that the purpose of these days is not to enhance our professional capabilities, is to enhance our capacity to be fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, and sons, right? To become who we are. And lastly, and probably the favorite amongst the employees, are 12 days of Christmas. So we are very lucky in our industry that we are able to do this without major implications to our customers. But because we're able to do it, we think it's very important. The greatest gift this world has ever given was our Savior, the incarnation of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And Pipe Services chooses to give the 12 days of Christmas off. Well, we do have to still service our customers in certain ways. So we have methodologies of making sure that we pick that phone up and we get someone on the ground if it's an absolute emergency. But generally speaking, these 12 days of Christmas are spent at home with our families. They're spent in recovery and in contemplation and just simply enjoying those 12 days of Christmas, which start on Christmas Day and go until the Epiphany on January 6th. So that concludes our current framework within the liturgical calendar. It's a growing effort. It's an improving effort. And if you're listening to this video and you have an idea, a way of helping us to do this even better, we want to hear about it. Give us a call, shoot us an email. We want to be the best company in the nation at applying this framework. With that, I've just outlined for you the three primary frameworks that we use to guide our company, the why behind what we do. We are under no illusions that our customers care much about our why. Our customers care first and foremost about what we do and how we do it, and that's offering great inspection and cleaning services of sewer lines. However, our why is what allows us to do that job very well, leaving not only happy customers, but just as importantly, happy and fulfilled employees, which is what we come to work for every day. Yes, of course, to feed and provide for our families, but we also come to work every day to feel fulfilled. And when you spend 8 to 10 hours a day at your place of employment, it's very important that at the end of the day, you're proud of what you do and you recognize that you and your coworkers have made both each other and the world a little bit better on that day.